Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Class 1A podcast, where today we are finally getting around to our Season 6 recap, kind of sharing our final thoughts on the season, answering some of the big questions, and of course, wrapping up things like Plus Ultra, our favorite moments, and all of that. Apologies for getting this out so late if you are listening live. We had a couple of things going up, including Dylan deciding that he's too good and had to go all the way over to Japan, which sounds like you had a great time on that, Dylan.
Yeah, I had to go to the source. I found Deku. I beat him up.
Had a cop Horikoshi. Obviously, you got invited over. Full 5-star service went to UA, all that kind of stuff. But no, it's glad to have it back. Me and James have just been chilling here, slowly waiting for our third to return. But we are back in here and ready to go into everything. So if this is your first season recap with us, pretty much we're just going to talk a little bit about it. I have a couple of questions to lead off the show to kind of get you guys' thoughts on the season. Then we'll talk about the arcs, a couple of our favorite moments, and then throughout the season we have been doing Plus Ultra. We'll kind of talk about a couple of the people that we thought overall win Plus Ultra, and then who was the Ultimate recipient on the season. But for me, my biggest question coming into this for you guys is that Season 6 was a season that we told people that pretty much everyone said, this is the season My Hero gets good. This is a season that if you fell off, catch up and come back. Was that true? Did it live up to the hype? Did it fall short? Do you think My Hero is in a better season, at a better spot after Season 6 than it was before, or no? Kind of the overall scheme.
We are so fucking back, baby. I would highly. I've been telling people every time they say that they're vaguely into My Hero or they're just watching anime. I just tell them you got to get caught up. This is the season to watch. And I think it's still like true. Like from the start to finish, everything has been incredibly hype. I don't think they've really fumbled anything major. For the most part, it has been just as good as it was to read through, if not maybe even a little better.
Yeah, the animation definitely adds the extra bit of impact. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like the illustrations are always incredible. They're always like so nice and vibrant to look at. But like the animation and the voice acting really just adds like extra layers that that your own internal monologue reading this can't replicate, right? It's so good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think especially with how the season kicked off, it kicked off hard. It kicked off great. The Miracle episodes that I think a lot of us have been looking forward to really set the tone. There's definitely some up and down. There's a couple of episodes that I felt, I wouldn't say slow, but just obviously when you animate them and surround them with major battles on both sides of it, they can feel slow parts throughout the season. But overall, I think it nailed it. I still hear people kind of being like whatever on Season 6, which always kind of blows my mind. Even in a couple of YouTube comments, I've kind of seen people that are a little disappointed of it. And I think for some, the hype definitely was too high. I think a lot of people hyped this up too much of like, oh, this is going to be one of the best seasons of anime ever, which is hard, especially when we've had Chainsaw Man. We've had a lot of really good anime around it, which I definitely think dampens it from an anime only watcher. But as someone that read the manga and has been waiting for this, worth the hype for me. But I think when a lot of people, especially us too, we helped with that, hyped it up to being one of the best seasons ever when a lot of people loved the Down to Earth 1 and 2 seasons. I think for some people it definitely was a disappointment, but for me, I wouldn't change a damn thing. I loved it so much.
We call them haters, Andrew. That's what we call them.
I mean,
sipping on that fucking haterade.
I want to try to beat. I agree. Some people are just hating because some people just didn't like the direction My Hero went, but it is definitely hard that when looking at a lot of the other shonen around it, that sometimes My Hero, especially in animation, can look down. But I think there's moments this season that definitely, I would say, is as beautiful as Demon Slayer. When I think about animation, you always hear Demon Slayer. I think My Hero had a couple of those moments. And something I think My Hero struggles with a lot sometimes is there's no good like Twitter clips. Like so many other anime, like I can think of Demon Slayer has like a couple where they do the first flame dance or killing the mother spider and stuff like that you see on Twitter, big moments. My Hero hasn't had that in forever, but there's 2 or 3 moments during that I've already seen popping up on TikTok and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, which is what I think My Hero's been missing. Those clippable, memorable moments have not been there for a while, and I'm so happy they're back.
So one thing I think because of that, and then we can definitely jump into the meat of it, but I think it's because My Hero's best moments are more emotional than visual.
Yeah.
Like all of the ones that hit the hardest, it's like, oh, like All Might's fight or Endeavor's fight, like any of those ones that like really like hit the heartstrings are the ones that are the hypest, because I don't know, visually like the hypest moments are like sometimes really cool, but like it's more like contextual, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's like context is such a big those like context is what makes the big moments in My Hero. It isn't like the one-off clips of somebody fighting or somebody doing something crazy. It really is like the build up and then just the final like apex of like whatever that conflict is. That's what hits really hard. And so it is hard to kind of, yeah, I agree, get those like clippable moments. But when you do see them as like somebody who enjoys the show, like it does kind of bring like back like a shadow of those same emotions every time you see it, right? So it's pretty you need to build it out a bit more.
Yeah, I think a great example of that is the Endeavor after he does his plus ultra prominence burn up in the sky, then falls. One of my favorite moments of anime of all time, but it's never clipped or really shown because there's so much emotion outside of that you can't show. So I do agree with a lot of that. Before we go in the recaps, there's one other question. So we think it lived up to the hype. Is there anything you guys would have changed, whether it be in the first arc, second arc, throughout the season, even if it's just I didn't like this part of the story and I changed it just directionally, or I didn't like how they did that? Is there anything that stands out to you guys?
I think the one that stands out immediately is the Mina like dropping the antidote part. Or not the antidote, the like the sleep poison, whatever you want to call it. That one, I don't know, that never felt good to me.
You had beef with it when we were reading it too, right? Like,
yeah, and it's, I don't know, I think it really just takes away, if anything, like from Mina, and I don't know, I really wish that didn't happen. I felt like there could have been such a better moment there. But I think that's the one thing I would have changed, that I really wish that, in the switch over from manga to anime, there was maybe some editing, but I know that they're pretty hands off in making actual changes now.
yeah, the like I like the season 6 was like an astounding yes for me. Like it is considered like one of my favorite seasons now at this point. But the big thing I was excited for was towards the end of the Rogue arc, or like whatever it's called, like the Dark Hero arc, or
Dark
whatever.
Hero.
Yeah, when they show all of their new like special moves and stuff like that, right? And I remember being so excited for having piercing wall, which was Todoroki's like massive ice wall that, again, it's supposed to like touch clouds, right? And it was very lackluster. And then it was the same thing with Jiro and everything like that. Like those moments felt very, I don't know, just like they just got skimmed over. And that being said, like the eventual like recapturing of Deku with a combination of like everybody else was again like perfectly handled. But it was just these little things that were supposed to be, these massive big upgrades for these various characters were just very like, meh.
Yeah, it feels really weird when Todoroki's best move was like season 1, right? Of where they were,
the entire, like, yeah.
yeah, like I wanted that scene, but like take it up another level to show his real power now. So I agree with you there, I think.
Yeah, I agree with some of those powers. And I think that just kind of comes down to some of the translation between manga and anime. Like,
Yeah,
I think Ochako's speech in the manga hit me a lot harder than it did in the anime. It was still really good in the anime, but it just didn't hit the same for me. And I think some of the medium has an impact on things like that. I think when you have a whole week to animate 2 special moves per chapter, because that's kind of what they were doing at that time, when doing the Deku recapture kind of moment, is that there'd be like 1 or 2 powers, and then you kind of go on to the next chapter and have another week to work on it. So obviously when you're trying to pump those out here, it doesn't work exactly the same. But I think the biggest thing that you guys probably know about me is we had an arc literally called War. The Paranormal Liberation War arc is what it was called. And we didn't have any significant deaths. I know we had Midnight, which is the most significant death, and I don't even feel like they did that well. I just never worry about anyone ever dying in My Hero. And this arc has really reassured that for me. People don't have to die for it to be a good anime. But I think some of my favorite moments are when characters do die, characters that I really love, or seeing the emotional moment of where they're passing and kind of feeling that, or having if Class 1A saw Midnight die and couldn't get there in time, like that emotional moment of them dealing with it, but also sharing the moment with them. Like, I think there can be a lot of really good emotion, which you say is the best part of My Hero, that they just skip over by not really focusing on character death ever. And that's sad to me.
I think like the one big problem was it didn't even feel like it was equal either. because like on the villain side, like twice, right? Like lose twice, which is like a huge moment. And there was no real good like equal exchange there because like we lost Crust, who's Crust. Okay, cool, I guess. Like
Yeah.
we could barely know him, and then Midnight, which is pretty significant, but like I don't know if I would put her up there with Twice in terms of like how significant the character is.
Relevant, yeah.
And if it was supposed to be kind of like equal significance, then like they just completely fumbled Midnight's delivery there, which definitely sucks.
Yeah, there was a few other like obviously they did talk about how many heroes were lost in this whole like thing, right? But like there again, it was very like C or almost like D tier characters that you'd seen of in passing. I will kind of contest the Crust thing though, because even though it didn't seem to be a relevant thing to the viewers, it did seem to be relevant to some of the older heroes who.
It is a top 10 hero. It is a top 10 hero in Japan that just died in front of them.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but it's not like actually significant though, because it's all of a sudden if you introduce here's like the number one super ultra guy, and then it's just okay, well ultra guy's dead all of a sudden.
Then you kill him off, yeah.
But
it did feel like they did do a half decent job, I would say, on making Crust death more relevant to characters who may have had a history with him, vice the actual class who like really didn't actually know him, right? Because I do believe like with Endeavor and I think maybe All Might, it seemed to land a little bit, but like those were like the big ones.
No, but I totally agree with you that it landed with them a lot, but it didn't land with me.
No, exactly.
We're the people it needs to land with.
If you're going to spend that time, like they spent more time on Crust's death than Midnight's, which is a character we've known since season 1, like episode 5. Like a character that we have been with.
We always knew that was going to be fumbled, and we had hoped that
that's why that's something I wanted to fucking change. Like, give me good deaths. Like, I agree. Twice is something I overlooked there. Twice, a phenomenal way they did that. But again, I feel like that could have been a very big moment for kind of the side characters of Class 1A to kind of have that growing up moment. You feel like Todoroki, Bakugo, Deku, a lot of them have been so far ahead in terms of their like maturity because of the things they have to deal with and all that kind of stuff, or the secrets or powers they hold. Well, the rest of Class 1A is just kind of joking off still. Like, I know during the war arc they weren't, but that could have been a moment of like, nope, seeing their teacher die in front of them and then still reacting, getting over that shock and stopping Machia would have been 10 times more impactful than kind of how it was now, where they did all that, which was still great, and then kind of dealt with Midnight after the fact. But them showing that they could be heroes and overcoming the worst part of the job would have kind of elevated that moment. Still great, all that have done well, but I think that moment could have been elevated by switching the order and just literally giving us 3 screens of Midnight being stabbed, and then that's it. Like, I think that's all you had to do there. But, all right. So, 2 sides of the coin to start off the episode, but now let's actually kind of get into the arcs. I think the hardest one is going to be is kind of Liberation arc, so let's kind of break that into 2, and one kind of talk about the initial assault, and then let's talk about kind of Deku versus Shigaraki in the second half, because that was pretty much 9 episodes. So I don't really want to do a recap. I just kind of want to hear you guys' thoughts on how it was. Any favorite moments, any characters that really stuck out to you? I mean, obviously Mirko was the star of the first kind of couple of episodes. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on it?
I think there's a couple like maybe hidden good moments, because the obvious ones are huge and obvious. But one is Kaminari at the very beginning, having his moment to shine. I thought that was like that's a moment that's not going to be remembered unless you think about him first and his good moments. Which is a shame because it rocks. It's so cool. It's like such a good way to kick everything off too. It really sets the tone of like people are going to start getting their time to shine. And I don't know, it's so cool.
Yeah, it was really hyped to see like Kaminari like coming to his own. You know what I mean? Like because he has always been, despite the fact that he's been like a little like cocky and stuff like that, but there's never been like confidence. There's never been substance behind that cockiness. But this was one of the first times where he was like, no, I'm that guy. Like I am that guy. And like, you know, and he just took it head on. It was sick. It was a great way to kick it off. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's really shown that Class A was going to be involved too, that it wasn't just going to be the main ones, because the first classmate that got a big moment wasn't a character we really thought of would ever got it. So I love that they brought in Denki first. And I think that whole scene there too, and even a little bit before it, they did a great job of making it seem like this was a big ass war, like a big ass battle. Like I love seeing all the characters. I love seeing, especially when they first engaged a building and they tore it in half and all that, just the hundreds, thousands of people's kind of scrambling around and all that. So they did a really good job of making it feel like it was a big scale, but then bringing it down and having these smaller fights, these smaller moments without kind of taking away from it being a bigger battle, which can be hard sometimes, especially in anime.
So one of the other things I thought they did really well there is, for the first time ever, I feel like Hero Society felt like it was actually what it should have been.
A society?
In terms of, yeah, like a society who has like a lot of funding, who has the government behind them, who has this massive organization of like top trained people. Like that assault and how coordinated it was, it actually felt like all those things were true. Because we haven't really had that moment before, because we've had small squads that were mainly led by the police, but we've never had like these types of moments, at least on display like this.
Yeah, you've never like, because I mean, I think the closest thing we got to this previously was like the Hasakai, the overhaul raid. That was like the only other time we saw coordination through heroes. But again, it was heavily led by the police and everything like that. So like, I guess maybe that speaks to how much how much federal liaisoning the police do with the heroes. Like that might be more like, which would make sense in a hero where policing is kind of it's second tier because you're dealing with quirks and everything like that. That you need basically somebody who represents the government there at all times, and I guess that's the police at this point. But yeah, no, it was crazy to see that. It's like, okay, this can be like mobilized almost as like an army when it needs to, right? Yep. Like which is sick, right?
Yeah, I think every part of that, and I love even seeing throughout the entire time, you had the mysterious guys in the dark room with all the screens and all that kind of stuff that you think of in war movies and spy movies and all that kind of stuff. It really felt bigger too there. But on the other side, I think how they balanced the odds with the high ends was perfect. Because when you think about it, when you have the top 10 heroes going up against a bunch of fucking nobodies that are kind of part of a cult, basically, like this should be a stomp. And how they introduced the no moves is that, no, it makes sense. The heroes got them by surprise. They had the full advantage, and then it swept around and almost went to even or losing. I think was a very good ramping up, because obviously you want to start off well and make sense for the heroes to do well and not just instantly get their ass kicked. I mean, that's generally how a war does. When you get the jump on it, it's going to make sense. And the high end, they did a great job of explaining why they weren't overpowered right away, but why they got stronger. I love the diversity of them. And honestly, I would rather just focus on more high ends than random one-off villains. Like the ice dude, that whatever, like that fought Cementos. Cool moment and all that kind of stuff, but I care and remember more about the high ends than I do about him. Like, I think it was a good way to make memorable moments and characters without actually having to flush out any backstories or anything kind of like that. They're just there, they're cool, and they're great villains.
It was Getten, wasn't it?
Getten.
I liked Getten. I don't know. I thought he was really cool. He went toe to toe with Dobby initially, so I don't know. Getten was fine. I want to take the low hanging fruit there though, and especially talking about the high ends is like Mirko. I think Mirko was what season 6 needed to get the hooks into everybody, because every one of her fight scenes were insane. They were beautifully animated. The accuracy to the panels was incredible. And you see why she's so highly ranked, because she just tore through these high ends really before they were able to fully develop, but they were still quite powerful at that time, right? So, and not only that, but I mean, and we've talked about how severe the injuries were in the manga comparison to the anime, but basically breaks her own arm, and I think in the manga actually rips her own arm off and just keeps going ham, right? She is what made season 6 just I think it reignited a lot of people's interest in the show.
Literally lost an arm and leg. She's the best.
Yeah, just kept kicking ass the entire time, right?
Yeah, I think they knew what they're doing when they split the season and started off with that, or when Horikoshi was writing it, thinking no, this would be a great spot to start. They knew how to kick off this season between kind of the whole Hawks moment of kind of giving a little bit of setting up with the Twice stuff, but also then getting straight into the action. They knew what they're doing when they're kicking off this season. But I kind of want to move over to the villain side. I want to talk about Twice. I want to talk about that moment. It was really great of kind of getting the first inklings that one, Dobby has a lot more than we know he does, because we've always been curious of what the fuck's Dobby's doing. I think the moment between Hawks and Twice was great and really hit home what he needed to. You were supposed to feel bad for both of them. They both were doing what they felt was right, and I think they nailed that well, because sometimes it might not, but they did enough setup without doing too much between the last 2 seasons to make it feel like everyone cares. But seeing the kind of the darker side of Hawks, I loved. Not much to say there besides that they did it perfectly. I will not forget that moment for a long time.
Yeah, I think it is definitely one of the best moments of the series, and it just got solidified here. Like, I don't know, just that entire, like, I think probably 2 episodes, right? Because like starts off first with like Hawks and Twice kind of having that showdown, and then the second one being the moment with Toga. Like both of those are just incredible scenes. And those are like the moments I really like My Hero for, because like the battle between like Hawks and Twice is always like so nuanced, like you were saying, Andrew. And like that's the cool stuff, right? That like weird like gray zone of like what does it actually mean to be a hero and be a villain and stuff. So I love that.
It was just so nice having these like 2 characters on the same side, or like all like they're different sides of the same coin, right? Like and like I think that was just handled so masterfully that like it's gonna be hard to like unfortunately the scene with Kaminari is gonna be forgotten despite the fact how badass it was. But this, like, it's because of moments like this. Like this was just so well done that like how could you forget about it, right?
Yeah, I agree. Like if I had to summarize, okay, you don't want to watch season 6, but you want to get a gist of what happened in the first 9 episodes, I would say watch the Miracle fight. I would say watch the Dobby and Hawks moment. And I'd say that, I mean, if you had to summarize the what happened the first 9 episodes, I would say that was the big things that happened the first 9, and then Machio waking up. I think those were the 3 big points of the first 9 episodes that are memorable, that I think if I had to recap this in 30 seconds or less, that'd kind of be what I'd focus on, with the war happening all around with a lot of random little battles. Or is there anything else I'm missing?
Maybe a good pivot point, because I actually don't know if this takes place at the end or at the beginning of
I don't either.
where we want to split them up. But like maybe the really good pivot point is the huge reveal, the big reveal that we've been waiting for forever. Because we've known about this for how long? Like 3 years now. With Dobby.
The Dobby thing, yeah.
Yeah, the Dobby reveal, the one theory that everyone made. Everyone's like, oh, it's so obvious that him and Endeavor are related, blah, 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 blah. Yep. And then Horikoshi was like, you know what? It's so obvious that I have to do it because no one's going to expect the obvious.
It
was Shigaraki. Can we all agree that we all cared so much more about Dobby during this arc than we did about Shigaraki, even though he woke up like episode 3, that we wanted to know what the hell was going on with Dobby?
Yes.
Did not really care what happened with Shigaraki the entire time.
Well, I mean, like anytime it like flashback to Shigaraki, it was a combination of, okay, I want to get back to Dobby too. This motherfucker looks like Tetsuo right now. Like I'm really enjoying this, but like it was no. Dobby definitely like captured like it was such a good time for like new / side characters for the beginning of this arc. Like I think we talked about it a few times too, where it's like how little like Deku was in it, you know what I mean? Like it was all these other stories unfolding, and it was so sick.
And I think that's what that's what the war arc needed to be. Because if it just followed Deku throughout the entire thing and only got small moments here and there, I don't think it would have been done near as well. That's obviously why they didn't focus on it. Because in a war, one person isn't always having things happening, even though that's what shonens make it feel like sometimes. But there are other things happening, and really focusing in on that made the arc feel bigger and more impactful. But then also made when we came back and kind of focused more on Deku and Shigaraki at the end, you kind of knew what was all on the table. Like, oh, the heroes were kind of losing. We had the high ends coming to beat Deku / Shigaraki. Like, we had all these little things that built up from the first 7 episodes or whatever, so that when we got to the final fight, focusing on the main character, of course, it felt bigger, more impactful, and that, like, shit, if Deku loses here, everything could be over. Like, that's kind of what it felt like, because the heroes were starting to lose at that point. So that's good that there's so many other things going on, so many side characters getting moments.
when you talk about it like that, it's very reminiscent for me as a kid who grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and watching
Yep.
all these other fighters who are part of like I think they were called the Z Squad, basically like having like these small like individual battles and moments and stuff like that, and it made it so much more impactful when Goku is eventually going to like fight the biggest bad, right, or fight like somebody who like he just killed off Krillin for like the 15th time. You know what I mean? Like, but it was this like this very well done lead up and build up of like, okay, this needs like crazy ass intervention. Like somebody super powerful needs to make this happen because we've seen all these individual like skirmishes play out. So
Yeah. They do that great in One Piece too, and we've seen My Hero do that before. The Shihatsuki arc was the first time to get that, but
Yeah,
we had the Fat Gum Kirishima moment, we had the Tamajiki moment, we had the Mirio moment that all built up to Deku fighting at the end. So My Hero is able to do that. It is a very common kind of shonen thing.
It's a
But
shonen
I
thing,
think they stretched it out farther than ever, because in the Shihatsuki arc, it was like a 4-episode kind of build up, 5-episode build up to this. This was like, I don't know, I want to say 10 episodes. There's little moments of Deku here and there, but it was a good 10 episodes in the season before that really started, which felt like a long time for My Hero not to focus on Deku. And I'm glad they did. If they would have started that fight at like episode 5 and all that kind of stuff, and that was kind of the A plot, and then everything else was the B for the rest of it, it wouldn't have been done as well. So I'm very glad that My Hero seems more open to taking the focus off Deku, which makes sense as it gets to a bigger scale. The world is coming to a fucking end, basically. Like, it makes sense that there's less time focusing on Deku, but they can still bring it back and make it feel impactful when they need to. But I guess that all came out of Dobby's dance, which is still just we talked a whole episode about it, 2 episodes probably about it, but it's just not enough to say of what that reveal is, especially kind of seeing all the people actually reacting to it like on Twitter and stuff like that. It's always so fun to kind of see those reactions live a second time and kind of waiting for it this time. But
but once just to kind of I guess kind of build on your point and like social media and stuff like that and like the Twitter clips and stuff like that, Dobby's dance was one of the big ones that was like was circled around so much because of how like, and again, it was contextual, right? Like, we've known about this for years. It was the most like fuck you in your face thing that it's ever existed in My Hero, but it still made that, like, the reveal was still incredible, right?
So the one thing I think we can get kind of like into, because it feels hard to separate these, even though they are 2 separate moments, is all of these sacrifices against Shigaraki. So the first one, obviously being Aizawa cutting his leg off because
like
he gets shot. So incredibly cool. And then of course, like the big one there is Bakugo having his Deku season 1 episode 1 moment of where he just moves without thinking and then helps block a shot against Deku and just gets absolutely blasted.
And echoing the same lines too, like the internal monologue of echoing exactly what Deku said too. I love parallels. They're so easy to kind of write into stories like this, like, but whenever they're done and done right, they're some of the best moments, and I just love that. Even though it's just Bakugo getting injured, but him having those moments, love it. Anything Bakugo does, we love.
Yeah, it's just Bakugo, man. Bakugo.
Okay, I mean, we should probably talk a little bit about Shigaraki, considering that he's now the official big bad kind of now. So he clearly got a power up. He was kind of going back and forth, kind of fighting for his body with All for One we see now. Like, where are we kind of standing on Shigaraki after his power up, after this kind of arc? Like, are we feeling more afraid of him yet? Or is he still kind of whatever and not what we want as a main villain?
Yes. I think, like, in terms of like his power, I think they demonstrated it so well during this that it kind of bridged that gap for me. I think like the biggest one is like he can touch like anything, and like it like his quirk goes through things. I think that was like the important thing of like him, like this was breezed over really quickly, but whenever he woke up, he like touched the ground and just exploded an entire city. It gets breezed by really quickly, but like that sheer amount of power, I think, is just like the starting point for us of being like, okay, now we know why he is so strong. This is his like just like baseline at this point.
Yeah, and it's a combination of that and as well as his demeanor. Like, that was always the thing that made All for One feel like so much more scary and powerful, right? Is because of how he carried himself, right? But now Shigaraki has like He's got his like, and the nice part is too is it's not like a clone of All for One. He's got his own energy, he's got his own swagger, and he's got this incredibly destructive quirk. And he feels like an absolute force now, right? And it's nice, even if he is having that kind of internal struggle with All for One. It still feels like, okay, Shigaraki is like, he's a badass motherfucker now, right? Like that's just it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it feels like every other time, like, okay, All Might could kind of take him on himself. Like every time Shigaraki's kind of been squared up with, it feels like Deku could have kind of been able to handle him. But like, nope, now we need everyone to help handle him. We need Aizawa to be in it. We needed Gran Torino saved him a time or two. I think Mount Lady had a moment where he kind of saved him. Like, nope, it is clearly that he's getting to that big bad level that I still prefer All for One a little bit. I hope that Switch kind of gets there. I know they're pretty much one and the same now, but as a characters overall, I'm still not 100% sold on Shigaraki. But every big moment around him, I am getting closer and closer. He is having that big buildup, and I think that makes sense. So I think this is the first point where it's supposed to be getting close to him being the real big bad. So giving a couple more episodes, giving next season whatever happens there, I definitely think that switch will happen soon. But I'm just still not quite there. I think.
It's probably like they're a different flavor of villain too, right? Like you have the tragic villain, and then you have the villain born evil, right? Like I mean, they're two very like, despite the fact that their goals are kind of the same, their origin stories are significantly different, right? Which gives it just it's I think it's very much a Horikoshi's done this really well, where he's created two villains, so you still have somebody that you like as a villain, but like. You have choice now, right? Like you have a variety, which is super interesting. You don't see I don't think you see that very often, not along the same storyline.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just the biggest thing is it feels like outside of Muscular, every villain inside My Hero Academia is an emotional villain. Like I think that's why Muscular stands out to me. That's why All for One stands out to me, because the overall premise is everyone Deku fights, oh, they can be saved. They're emotional. They just had a bad childhood. And I feel like getting away from that is why I think I like those villains so much more. And I think we're getting close to that point in Shigaraki. I think I might be going on too much on this point, but anything else with this first kind of arc? I mean, anything from Dabi to the fight, pretty much anything up to when they went into the hospital. Is there anything else you want to touch on? Any other moments that you guys really want to talk about that we kind of brushed by?
No, I don't know.
No, I think it was good. I mean, I think overall, obviously we don't want to do like individual rankings. Let's do like a tier ranking. What tier would you put the Paranormal Liberation arc in terms of compared to other My Hero Academia tiers?
Probably S. Like it's among the best arcs. Like especially individually. Like I don't know. I don't think that could be disputed. Like just so much good stuff happened. It was so well executed. Like it's great. Watch it.
Yeah.
Is there? Go on.
No. I was just echoing Dylan. Yeah.
It's not the best, but it is S tier.
What do you consider the best tier? What would you consider at this point then? What's still better than this?
Man, I don't. It's really tough. I think the sports festival arc from the earlier seasons was really, really, really good. I think that's like an S tier level.
Yeah. Stain arc was probably S tier as well.
Yeah. There's definitely not many though, and most of them are early on.
Yeah. They are. They really are. I mean, the Gentle arc, of course, is S tier as well. Like, let's be real, boys.
Yeah, what? Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, let's be real, but
I love Gentle.
Moving into the second half of the season, so we're just kind of calling it the Dark Hero arc. So pretty much any time from when they're in the hospital and society was collapsing, pretty much until Deku went back to UA. So the final 8-9 episodes, I believe it was of the season. I think this was one that, as a manga reader, I was more excited for this arc than I was for the Liberation War. I think there's a lot of good moments of this, but when thinking and seeing how they were going to do Rogue Deku, I think was a moment that I was incredibly excited for. And this would be where I kind of have my biggest gripe of the season, is going to be in the Rogue Deku arc. So that's my initial thoughts on that. I think all the hospital stuff, the emotional moments with the Todorokis were all done well. I think the Vestige conversations were handled well, but once they got out of the hospital, I had a little bit of issues with the overall arc. What did you guys kind of think in general of the later half of the season?
I thought it was good. but I don't think it had any problems that the manga really didn't. Like I thought
Yeah.
they translated the drawing him a little bit differently. Like they translated that fairly well. And like honestly, I actually have the opposite opinion of you. I think Uraka's speech was even better in the anime. Like
Oh,
I thought the voice actress like really sold it so much so that it like kind of elevated it for me. But I mean this arc has always kind of been like uh not a stumble because it's definitely not a stumble but it's more of like a just slowing down a little bit because that's the my hero pace, right? It's like you got to get really intense and then you got to get into like super emotions, right?
Yeah.
Which I think they did here. And they I don't know I felt like they showed it well. And I think the thing that was really good for me here is all of the All Might stuff. I thought that was the super important moments. Is a lot of the All Might and like what is he thinking, what is he feeling, how is he still relevant to the story?
And not only that, like how ineffective I guess he was, because that was I think that was the big focus point of the Rogue arc was um All Might wanting to help, but knowing himself so well and knowing basically what he's instilled in Deku that like it wasn't gonna matter, right? Like it wasn't gonna matter at all. And I think that's what made the arc so impactful. It was slowing down, but I think giving the setting within the universe, it was probably the best way to do a slowdown, right? I think it could have gotten really cool, maybe like OVAs or something like that, of like the kind of like a rogues gallery thing for Deku to kind of go through and stuff. But I like for the pacing of the show, it very much made sense that you weren't going to have these like multiple fights all the time. It didn't make sense. But I think they did show like him slowly getting more and more worn down as you know his like solo mission kind of went on. They showed time really well, and like honestly, they showed the power of friendship pretty fucking good in this arc too, right? Like it was
Yep.
like it was the dark arc, but like they I think they did it great towards the end.
yeah. And I guess I should clarify a little bit there. I think there were a lot of fantastic moments. I think my biggest overall thing and something I think they did very well in the medium of a manga, it's a lot easier. It didn't, the overall tone and color palette didn't feel dark enough. It didn't feel like a full switch. Which is when we went in the manga, like, nope, this was a full switch. That first one when he was standing up on that ledge, the colors were so much darker. Like, I get that because when you transfer it over to reality, you can't just instantly tone everything down. But you also
you
could
can't
for a
Gears of
couple
War
episodes.
it, right? Like
Because I know that's not realistic, but it's anime at the same point. Like, you could just tone down your entire color palette, however that kind of works, but add some more blacks to it and make it look different outside of just the big moments. Because I think the power of friendship, I think the All Might, I think all those moments were fantastic. Just make it 30%, 40% darker, and I think the aesthetic matches the moments. Right now, it felt like a bit of a mismatch because, like the muscular episode, all the colors were so bright and vibrant and all that kind of stuff right at the start of the Rogue Arc. I know it was a bright, sunny day, but just dampen it a little bit and make it feel like Deku coming into this dark kind of the world's falling apart. Nope, it just kind of looked like a normal day with the rubble all around. Like, I think that was really my only gripe with it, but the actual arc and the content, amazing. I just wanted it to look more like a Rogue, a dark hero arc than it did.
yeah, I think the big thing for that was, I mean, like the muscular fight was very quick. And I think in the manga it was probably easier to skim through as far as like not really noticing that palette shift so much because it did happen so fast. Because the big point of the muscular fight was to basically showcase how nasty Deku was at this point, right?
Which they did a great job of. I don't want to get it wrong. Deku seemed sick as fuck. Like that time jump, they did well. They really showed how big of a jump he did.
That being said, though, I do feel like most of the Rogue arc did happen both when it was raining and at night, which was kind of the whole point of that mood was supposed to be like it's supposed to be shitty out and stuff like that. Yeah, like you do have these one-off days, and I think it makes sense to do the updated showcase in during the day, right? It does kind of make sense. On top of that, too, like I think it kind of shows how much of an outlier Deku was at this point, because this was the same time where we got Deku Light. I can't remember his fucking name for the life of me. The earthquake guy, right? But he's always been like he was also kind of like the Deku, like very upbeat, very like very confident personality. So for the environment to kind of be like that, it made sense for that to be the setting. And then you have this invasion of a very like dark and like dirty character in this very like bright atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like it does like if it did a very good job of portraying that Deku was an outlier and it was weird and we were going into like we were steering into anti-hero territory very fast.
So I think we are steering into anti-hero territory. We never really got there, but we did get our favorite anti-hero, maybe hero now, Stain. That was sick. It was really cool. I think we've been thinking about this forever, right? Of like, when is he coming back? He has to come back because he's been this presence in the show, even though he hasn't been in the show like for multiple seasons, for like 4 or 5 seasons, right? And so like to have him show up, have an impact, and for that impact to have totally made sense for his character is incredibly cool. And to use him as like the way to kind of bring All Might back in was, I don't know, it was so well written. I think this was a good Stain payoff for us.
Yeah, and just the way they did it too, like him, like just watching, like shadowing All Might, watching the statue, like it was peak Stain. It was just him to a T. Handled the character so well.
It just made me want more. I mean, that's the sad part. Like, bring him back. Like, I wanted him back like 3 seasons ago. Like, I do love Stain. I think they did it well. I think holding him this long until this moment, I think was a very good time, because I think Deku obviously needed someone to kind of bring him back down to earth. But I think other heroes did too, and All Might especially. So I think it was a great card to hold in your back pocket until now. I hope, and I gotta think we're gonna get more of him at some point. Like, he's still out there. He's kind of still helping. He views Deku as a true hero. He still supports All Might. Like, I can't just imagine he goes away. So I'm curious to see what we do more, and I hope we get more, because that's all I think of when talking about Stain. I want more. That's how I'd summarize the entire interaction with All Might.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was such a nice conclusion for the two of them.
And I think that kind of
conclusion, but like
no, but yeah, overall, like kind of it was something. But I think moving on to the other new kind of character, I wouldn't say new, but no, I don't know. It is an absolutely new character, Lady Gant. Kind of the other showcase of powers there. So Deku kind of got 2 power showcases here, one against the Gant. As well, what did you kind of think of her? I mean, I'd call her a top 10 women in My Hero Academia because there's only 10 women. But overall, what do you guys think about her? I mean, is that another character that you feel the same way, where you want more if she does end up surviving, or where are you at with her?
Absolutely not. I think we got exactly what we needed out of her. She's really cool and stuff, but like, I don't know how much more you could really tease out of that character, because the importance is her past, really. And so like, I don't know. I do like her though, because I think we're starting to see like Horikoshi like and his new quirks that he's like thinking of. Like, I feel like he got the easy ones kind of out of the way, and now you can see he's like getting really interesting with some of the concepts. So like the body gun hair bullet thing, I actually don't know how all of that works at once, but it's sick. I like it. I think it's a really cool quirk.
It is. It's sick. But I don't want to call her like a plot device, but like she did very much move the story along, and she did kind of reveal like how kind of fucked up the government is as well, right? Like they're basically hiring assassins and stuff like that, which it builds on the fact that Hawks wasn't a one-off either, which is really good. I think we needed that additional bit of world building with a good character, right? Like she, like, even though that was her purpose, she didn't feel like that. You know what I mean? I know that was kind of, I remember that kind of being the fans' response initially, was that, you know, like, oh, she's brought in, now she's like basically like killed off immediately after, right? But I think for the 3 episodes, I think it was around 3 episodes that she was in, she did feel absolutely terrifying. She did feel like a force, right? Like it was sick. And then it just reaffirmed how much of a dick All For One is, right? Like it was she was pretty well handled, I'd say. I'd see if you can see her repurposed, sick. If not, that's fine.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way there too. And yeah, I feel like she does feel like exactly a plot device, because that's when you get a new power. And also, she brought in Overhaul for whatever reason, and I really want to know where they're thinking of going with that. I mean, is it to kind of like just give a moment of Deku kind of like being that darker self? Like, no, you need to like all that kind of stuff was just showing Deku going down that path. Are they
it was just because he asked, right? Like she just felt sorry for him. Wasn't that the reason?
I get that, but he never.
yeah.
But like from a story standpoint, like you never had to do that. Like she could have just never interacted with them. Like it feels weird to bring a character like that had such a big impact, and we really have bad feelings towards, just to make him feel weak and pitiful and not go anywhere with that. It just feels weird.
Like the point of the prison breakout was like a little bit of like where are they now kind of scenario of like, okay, well everyone got locked up. It's the Batman Arkham thing, right? It's like, okay, well I want to see where all like my favorite villains are, and so we get to see basically everybody, I think. And then of course whenever we see Overhaul, it's like, oh well, he's mind broken because he got his arms exploded off, and he lost to Deku. And so it's kind of like here's where he is in a way that makes sense to show like, oh, he's just a mind broken dude.
Yeah, and on top of that too, it does show how just selfish and like self motivated he was, because like Deku was like, just like went on display looking like a total badass, and normally would instill fear in somebody if they had just seen this display, but all Overhaul cared about was like just like his own goals and what he wanted to do and stuff like that. He did not give a shit that Deku wanted him to apologize to Eri. Like it didn't register at all. So to me, I think it just reaffirmed where this character was rooted. I think that's what it did for me, at least. Which is fine. Which, like, because I mean, it is kind of like a where are they now sort of situation.
So just to summarize, though, we did not get to see where all of our favorite villains are because we didn't get to find Mustard, our favorite kid with the gun.
He's in juvie somewhere, man.
They broke out like 18 different prisons. He is free.
He was given the lethal injection and died at the age of 8.
I think he was in high school.
16.
Yeah, he was definitely in high school, and we need a comeback before before the show ends. I want to see Mustard one more time.
I do want to know what happened to Mustard, honestly, because he my power.
The kid pulls out a revolver. It is about so out of place right here.
Where did you get a gun? Yeah, Japan's gun laws.
Japan too, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god. I know. We didn't get to see Mustard. That kind of sucked.
No, but that leaves us with one last point of the arc to really dive into, and that was the return to UA with Deku and the saving of Deku, whatever you kind of want to call that moment. And we just talked about that recently, but I just have to say, outside of a couple moments like Heaven Piercing Wall, I think it was some of the best voice acting and animations in the series. I think that 2-3 episode, it felt darker, the tone felt down more, kind of like how I wanted. Everyone got their moments. The animation looked great. Like, this is what I want my hero to be every single week. I know that's not possible, but in terms of story, voice acting, animation, I don't think there's been a better 2-3 episode stretch in all of My Hero Academia. I think this takes it, even if it's not the best arc, it's the best mini moment in the series, I'd have to say. Even better
Very
than
emotional.
All Might versus
Very
1 for 1,
yeah.
all that. Anything to add on top of that? I know we just talked about it. We talked these 2 episodes to death, but I just had to say that it's top tier. It's S+. It's nothing competes.
Yeah, no, it was sick. It was really good. Love Ida getting some attention. Love my boy.
They did that, and that's one of the best parts. Like, I didn't even remember that Ida was the one that got there and rescued. So like, even it being so long since I read the manga and kind of having that moment happen again for like the first time, I love that. There's so many good moments there.
Yeah, I think this was just really good to solidify that the end is not going to be Deku it's not going to be 1v1 Deku versus Shigaraki or anything. It's really going to be like it's everybody. It's everybody's fight. And I think that's like a good lens that they're trying to shift it towards, to like really show like that's like the core purpose. Like that's one of like the core themes here that we're working with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would agree. And yeah, I hope we continue that next season. Obviously, be back at UA. That's kind of where we're going to start it. So we'll have some of those emotional moments and all that to start next season, I'm guessing. We also kind of have the out there of what is with the Star and Stripe. Is also where we left off the hanger. So maybe that's something we talk about when we do kind of season 7 thoughts and all that kind of stuff there too. But they've kind of left us with big cliffhangers of kind of what Deku's and everyone's next steps are, because we know the time period is now like what, less than 2 weeks or whatever, or was it only like 3 days? It was like nothing. I remember
10.
that.
Yeah, it was like I think 3 or 10 or something.
Yeah, it was not a lot of time.
So they're very much putting it in that like, okay, we have foreign help coming over now. time crunch is here. Like next season is going to come in, it's going to hit hard. And I think the hype for season 7 is going to be just as big as the hype for season 6. And I'm excited for that. And I hope season 7 can live up the same way that season 6 did. But with that, we do have the Plus Ultra. We got to talk through that here in a second. Is there anything else from all season 6 as a whole? Any other final thoughts you want to share? Anything kind of like that in season 6 before we move into Plus Ultra? All right. Well, with that, if you guys do not know, we've been doing Plus Ultra at the end of each and every episode where all of the hosts get to pick a character that went beyond that went Plus Ultra, or a thought or a person outside of it, because an honorable mention, I think, is what I think I dedicated one episode to the, I don't even know, was it the music guy? I don't remember. But you can pretty much do it.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. But we had a lot of people this season. I think season 6 is probably, I didn't count the individual entries, but the season where the most different amount of people got Plus Ultra. I think that's pretty safe to say with the number of characters in here. Maybe the sports arc, but we weren't doing like weekly episodes at that point. So I think that's actually a pretty easy one.
I think overall that's true. But if you count it arc by arc, I actually do think joint training might have had more different ones for a very obvious reason.
Yeah.
But overall season, this is definitely the most diverse one.
Yeah. So I really loved that, but I think it was very close. So we had a lot of ones. I mean, Mirko had a couple of clean sweeps at the beginning, definitely a big honorable mention. Shigaraki after being Shigaraki. I think we had Twice, we had Dabi, we had Hawks, all of them getting a lot of moments. But the Plus Ultra recipient of the season is Bakugo. I think it was very close going into those last couple episodes, but looking back on season 6, do you guys agree with that pick? Like, was that an in the moment kind of pick, or do you think someone else should have been the Plus Ultra recipient for the season overall?
I think that was in the moment. I think if you break down like each episode, he gets the most, but like in terms of like overall Plus Ultra, I don't think he actually gets it. Like, I think someone way more impactful has to be like Shigaraki, because I think Shigaraki goes like insane. He goes insane the entire season. So like he's definitely up there. And I don't know, like maybe Hawks had an insane season as well. Like who else could have gotten that?
Well, that was just it. I think it's very much like Bakugo grossly benefited from the format in which we do this, because where we do them by individual episodes and it's like 3 votes at a time, like. And I hate to say it, but like 90% of the time when Bakugo's on screen, he's impactful. He's so impactful every time, right? So you give him 3 to 4 episodes of screen time, well, he becomes the pretty definitive winner very quickly. So I can't say I'm shocked, but yeah, like as we've kind of done this entire recap, it's been like, okay, Bakugo did have some pretty kick-ass moments, but like, was he the overall recipient? You know what I mean? Like.
Fuck you. Yes, he was.
Okay,
what are you two talking about?
Simmer down over there.
What are we talking about?
How did he go beyond more than Shigaraki?
There is a chance Deku's dead if Bakugo doesn't jump in and save him. 1. 2, Deku doesn't even come back to fight as a squad and probably gets broken and captured if Bakugo doesn't learn to express his feelings, which we know is harder than fucking using superpowers. Like, Deku doesn't come home without him. Deku doesn't live without him, and a city of people don't evacuate without him.
It's
Man
not
had
about
an impact at everything throughout the entire season.
It doesn't matter if you have a lot of impacts. Plus Ultra is about going beyond your.
He talked about his feelings. He talked about his internal feelings that have been festering for 10 years.
I'm gonna say, like, yeah, I hate to say it, but like, emotional maturity may be the most Plus Ultra thing you can do.
We are having someone literally fight like the most evil being ever existed within his own body. On top of that, other quirks, and he's like fight like he has having like an internal struggle, and then he deletes an entire city.
We have a dude that said, I'm going up against the biggest, baddest villain of all time, and I'm still going to take a shot clean on to save my buddy.
He is doing what a normal high school pre-quirk Deku would do.
I don't know if I see a fucking machine gun loaded at me, I don't think I'm pushing any of my friends out of the way like Bakugo did there. Are you kidding me?
If that happened to us, I would save James.
Wow,
I'd save James.
Bullshit.
I would push James out
would you express his love for him 8 episodes later too then?
Yeah.
No, it would be like 3 seasons down the road, but he'd get there.
And then he'd make me take a bath.
That's
I
it.
agree that Shigaraki had a huge impact on the season, but I really think the biggest things is one, breaking Deku out of his rage moment, which I don't think anything else really could have, and bringing Deku back home. I think those are two hugely impactful moments in the season that changed the course of Deku's path.
I think it is a bit of apples to oranges because like they're two different.
Yeah,
They're two different scales, right? They really are. Like, yes, you do have somebody who's internally struggling, who's born, like, who had a horrible upbringing, was turned into this absolute weapon of destruction, and has now harnessed this quirk into, just basically like a force that can't be stopped. And you have a 16-year-old boy who's learning how to express his emotions. I don't know. Some people never learn how to do that. I think him learning how to do that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, apples to oranges, and apples are just better.
Well, apples are Bakugo, I think. So
Yeah, we all apples is obviously Bakugo. So I mean, me and James are on the same page. You're the only one not on the same page there. That's all I'm saying.
Well, first of all,
you need to work on your social cues.
passing up the orange, the literal orange, as not Bakugo. But I'm the one who's here.
Fair.
Move
Yeah,
us on. Move us on.
I mean, that's it. That is going to be it for season 6 recap. I think we're still figuring out exactly what we're doing for the off season. Obviously, I think we took a couple weeks break here. We want to get back. We will be doing some My Hero Academia content during the off season. We'll absolutely be ramping it back up in season 7 when that gets announced, when we start getting those dates. So definitely be hearing from us on all that. But otherwise, thank you all for tuning in with us every single week through season 6. I know we got this recap out late, but it was a fantastic time going through season 6 with everyone. We had a lot more interactions, a lot more comments, and all that kind of stuff. So we appreciate everyone that's listened, watched, commented, interact on everything we do. It always means a ton. Obviously, we've been doing this for years now, and it always feels great that as we come into season, it feels a little bit bigger. We have another community growing. So we hope you guys stick with us during the off season. If not, we'll love to have you back for season 7. We all love My Hero just as much. Hope you guys had a great season, and we will see you all next.